Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for making time to attend this very important briefing on the 25th, 2025 meetings of the Conference of the Parties, 2025 meetings of the Conference of the Parties of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. Without any further ado, allow me to make some introductory remarks, and then we will proceed with a number of presentations, and after which I will give the floor to you for questions and comments. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates, excellencies, it's a great pleasure for me to join you today for this very important briefing on the 2025 conferences of the parties of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, which will take place in Geneva in less than 3 weeks. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Geneva Environment Network for their continued efforts at fostering information sharing and collaboration on environmental governance and for organizing this briefing. I also take this opportunity to thank the permanent missions for your engagement and commitment to our shared environmental goals. The 2025 COPs will be a pivotal moment in our collective efforts to tackle the growing challenges of hazardous chemicals and wastes. These issues are not only environmental, but they are interconnected with a range of economic, social, and health-related issues affecting communities and ecosystems worldwide. The BRS conventions provide a unique and vital framework to address these challenges, and their success depends on strong commitment, innovative solutions, and inclusive cooperation. As representatives of your respective countries, your engagement and cooperation are essential in ensuring that our conventions remain effective and responsive to emerging challenges. Important topics and decisions are in front of the parties to the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions at the upcoming 2025 meetings of the COPs. Let me highlight some of those. The Basel Convention parties will consider a range of issues touching the very core of the convention, starting with proposals to amend the disposal operations listed in its Annex 4. These operations are key to determine whether a substance or an object is a waste that may be subject to the convention's control provisions. The amendment proposals aim to improve legal clarity and also environmental controls, for instance, by including additional disposal operations that occur in practice or could occur in practice. In addition to revisiting how to define waste under the convention, the Conference of the Parties will also consider recommendations aimed at improving the functioning of the prior informed consent, the backbone of the convention's trade control provisions. Another significant item is the new strategic framework for 2025 to 2031, which will provide a vision, objectives, and indicators to assess progress in achieving the convention's goals. Additionally, the COP will consider various sets of updated or new technical guidelines on key waste streams and review the work on e-notifications, along with potential further activities on plastic wastes under the convention. The Rotterdam Convention parties will also consider listing in Annex 2 4 new chemicals, namely chlorpyrifos, methylbromide, and paraquat, under the pesticide category, and mercury under the industrial category. Parties will also resume their consideration of recommendations for listing 6 chemicals. In addition, COP12 will also consider a report containing input from parties and observers on how to enhance the effectiveness of the Rotterdam Convention, as well as a draft work program for the Compliance Committee for the biennium 2026 to 2027. The Stockholm Convention parties will also consider 3 new candidate persistent organic pollutants for listing in Annex A to the Convention: chlorpyrifos, medium-chain chlorinated paraffins, and long-chain perfluorocarboxylic acids, their salts, and related compounds. COP12 will also have before it the proposal from the government of Ethiopia to amend Annex A to the Convention on the listing of UV328 and review the specific exemptions and acceptable purposes for some COPs. Parties will also consider the progress on reaching the targets related to elimination of PCBs and the evaluation of continued need for DDT for disease vector control, along with the assessment of the funding necessary and available for the implementation of the convention for the period 2026 to 2030. Further, parties are set to launch the work of the Compliance Committee under the Stockholm Convention by electing its first set of members and considering its inaugural work program. The upcoming meetings of the COPs will also feature a high-level segment, and I know that some of you will be supporting your ministers or deputy ministers participating in the event. Amongst others, the HLS will raise political support and also awareness on how the three conventions contribute towards addressing those global environmental crises of pollution, biodiversity loss, and climate change, and promote dialogue among high-level representatives. I hope those discussions will contribute to the relevant and tangible outcomes and also highlight the importance of the work under those three conventions. Distinguished delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, today the world is confronting daunting policy challenges. As we look ahead to the 2025 meetings of the COPs, we are reminded of the urgency of our mission. More than ever, it is imperative that we work together, government, civil society, industry, and the scientific community, to strengthen the implementation of our conventions for a cleaner planet and also a healthy people. This briefing is an opportunity to prepare for a successful and ambitious set of COP meetings, and I look forward to your insights and negotiations, and thank you for your dedication to our shared goals. Let us continue to work together. Thank you very much. So with those few introductory words, I need my agenda. I would like to invite Ms. Juliette Holler, who's the head of the governance branch in the BRS Secretariat, to present on the COPs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rolf. And here we go. I will be delivering this presentation jointly with two colleagues of mine, Gunda and Mara Christina, who will complement with information on program of work and budget and the high-level segment. So I'll be handing over at one point in time of the presentation. So again, welcome to everyone. So starting with the highlights, the BC COP17, RC COP12, SC COP12 will be meeting in Geneva at the CICG from 28th of April to the 9th of May 2025 at the Geneva International Conference Center, CICG, with pre-meetings on Sunday, the 27th of April. This year, as we have usually every 4 years, there will be a high-level segment. The three COP presidents are as follows. Under the Basel Convention, Anita Sowinska from Poland. For the Rotterdam Convention, Hamad Shamimi from Pakistan. And for the Stockholm Convention, Ms. Maria Bursi from Canada. On the slide, you have the general URL to have access to all the information pertaining to the meetings. In terms of registration, so the registration deadline for parties to seek financial support has lapsed, whether for the COPs or for the high-level segments. And for observers as well, the deadline was the 14th of March 2025. This being said, registrations are still possible using the online platform until the 20th of April. After that, online registration will not be possible, and representatives would have to register on site at the CICG itself. I would like to remind those bodies or agencies that would have wanted to participate in the meeting as observers, the procedure for admission has closed at this time. It was until the 4th of April. I would like to also acknowledge, which is very important, all our donors who have been of course, key to have these meetings taking place, acknowledging Canada, Finland, Germany, Japan, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, and UNEP for their very general financial supports. In terms of where we stand as of the 8th of April, we have received registration of 1,281 parties, representatives, 660 observer representatives. For the ministerial high-level segment, we have 73 registrations, and for observers in the high-level segment, 13 representatives. It's important to note that this time round, all individuals that are wishing to enter the CICG will need to be issued a badge. And by badge, we need a meeting badge. So it will no longer possible to enter the premises with a permanent missions badges. This is really due to the security priorities that we have to put in place due to the high-level segments. On-site registration will take place from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday, 27th of April, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Monday, the 28th of April. This is where we anticipate the greatest number of registrations. And then during the other days of the meeting, we will have, of course, registration open, but for a more limited number of hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It will be possible to pick up badges for ministers and vice ministers during the opening hours of the registration desk upon submission by an electronic picture of the relevant minister or vice minister. You can always email the Secretariat at the address here on the screen if you have any questions pertaining to registration for the high-level segment. Turning now to the credentials, the bureaus have agreed on their approach for the preparation of their respective reports on credentials, and they will accept original credentials as well as copies of credentials in good order, with the understanding that if their copy is submitted, the original will be submitted as soon as possible. The submission of credentials, important 4 points to highlight. Credentials have to be issued by the head of state or the head of government or the minister for foreign affairs. We have invited early submission of credentials, electronic copies, for instance, in advance of the meetings by the 11th of April 2025, as this will help us progress the work to support the bureaus. We invite transmission of originals at the meeting venue itself, just to make sure that there is no loss of credentials between the permanent missions and the Palais and our offices here. As per the rules of procedure, the credentials are to be submitted, if possible, no later than 24 hours after the opening of the meetings, meaning by 10 a.m. on Tuesday, 29th of April, 2025. Three important guidelines to bring to the attention of everybody wishing to participate in our meeting, whether they're observers or party representatives. These three sets of guidelines are to ensure an orderly running of the meetings of the conferences of the parties, as well as subsidiary meetings. They relate to the use of cameras and audio-video recording devices by participants, guidelines for the participation of representatives of observers, and guidelines on preventing and addressing all forms of harassment at BRS meetings. These are key guidelines. They have been publicized everywhere, and we hope everybody will abide by them. Secretariat will be, of course, available in case any issue is raised by any of the meeting participants. Turning now to the organization of work. So this has been approved by the bureaus during their joint meeting in November 2024. The main documents are two of them, the scenario note in 1, and then the tentative schedule and the list of possible contact groups that are set out in document in 2. I will run through these in a minute, but just to give another pointers on what's ahead. There will be pre-meetings on Sunday, the 27th of April, as usual with past practice, a bureau meeting from 1 to 3 at the CICG, and then the opportunity for the regional groups to meet also at CICG from 3 to 6 p.m. On the other days of the week, the bureau will be meeting every morning from 8 to 9, except on Monday, the 28th of April, as the bureau will have met on Sunday. And then the regional meetings can take place every day again, every morning from 9 to 10. We will have in place an intranet and a mobile app. Now, a bit of color in our presentation. That's the usual tentative schedule where we have a color-coded mapping of the sessions throughout the 2 weeks. Green being the sessions specific to the Basel Convention, blue Rotterdam Convention, orange Stockholm Convention. If you see gray shaded cells, it is because of joint meetings taking place. So bringing together issues that are common to 3 or 2 of the conventions. And bright in yellow in the middle of the first week is the high-level segment over 2 half days. So the afternoon of the 30th of April and the morning of the 1st of May. As you will see, the first week is mainly gray, orange, and green, so Basel and Stockholm, primarily Stockholm, with an early session in the morning of the first day to introduce the listing of chemicals in Annex A, B, or C to the convention. The other early session, I would say, that is proposed and that was agreed by the bureaus is to have a Basel session also on the first day at the meeting to introduce technical guidelines other than POPs waste and the proposal put forward by the expert working group on the review of annexes to amend Annex 4 to the Basel Convention. Looking at the second week, we lose a lot of orange and there's no more yellow, so the meetings will be focused on primarily the Rotterdam Convention specific sessions, continuing their work on the Basel Convention specific issue, and also looking at a range of joint issues. It is anticipated that the parties would complete the work pertaining to specific sessions by the end of the last convention-specific session throughout the 2 weeks. And by the end, we don't meet the one at the very end on Friday evening, but during the 2-week period so that parties can progress along the way and complete their work in an efficient manner. A word about the contact groups. We anticipate a range of joint and convention-specific contact groups, but these are basically the same as in the past. So the joint contact groups could be on the programs of work and budgets, on technical assistance, financial resources and mechanisms, and on joint issues, this being a basket of issues that the COP will be considering. Those issues include, for example, the CHM, international cooperation, cooperation with Minamata, gender issues, and it will be up to the COP to decide for each of these issues whether there's a need to go to a contact group. We do not anticipate that all of them would go to the joint issues contact group. Under Stockholm, 2 convention-specific contact group, one on the listing of chemicals and one on compliance. For Basel, the 3 traditional ones on strategic matters, technical matters, and compliance and legal matters. Under the Rotterdam Convention, one possibly on enhancing the effectiveness of the convention, which may be or not merged with the consideration of compliance issues, and another one on the listing of chemicals. And I will now hand over to Maria Cristina for the high-level segment. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning to everyone. Just very quickly, and thank you, Juliette. As Juliette mentioned, we will have a high-level segment of the conferences of the parties being held on Wednesday, the 30th of April, and the Thursday, May 1st. Attendance to these meetings is open in the in the plenary to everyone, so all participants can access the plenary sessions, but the ministerial roundtables are only open for ministers, deputy ministers, or their equivalent. If you may ask if you can have a +1, in principle, we're looking at the capacity of the rooms, but we suggest that if you have a +1, that you register that +1, indicating that that's the person that would be accompanying the minister, and we will, closer to the time of the meeting, let you know whether there is a possibility or not to access the venue for that +1. Languages, in terms of the language, the plenary sessions will be conducted with simultaneous interpretation. However, the roundtables will be held only in English or the language that ministers would speak from the floor. And this is due to the logistic capacity of the rooms. It's very difficult to have very informal discussions with simultaneous interpretation. Further information on the high-level segment, as well as the documents and the thought starter, are all available on our website. The thought starter is available in the 6 UN languages. I suggest that you have a good look at it, because in there are sort of suggested questions for all of the themes that would be discussed under the high-level segment. In terms of the program, it is quite a full program for the high-level segment. There are a number of related events to the high-level segment, starting with an EMG high-level event at the lunchtime on Wednesday, the 30th of April. The arrival of ministers is expected to take place during the course of the morning of the 30th of April. Ministers will be ushered into the plenary session just before 3 at 2:45. So please make sure that your ministers are there on time, because we plan to start the session sharp at 3 o'clock to ensure that we can cover all the items that need to be covered during the high-level segment. The opening ceremony, as I mentioned, will start at 3. It will go on to close to 4 o'clock, give and take. There will be a photo session following immediately the opening ceremony. And after that, we will walk all of the ministers across the street to the Barenberg Center for the roundtables. For the roundtables, please note that you will be receiving, if you have registered a minister or equivalent to the high-level segment, they will be receiving very soon an indication as to in which roundtable they will be sitting, with additional information so they can actually prepare for those sessions. After the ministerial roundtables, we will have a dinner hosted by the Swiss government, and everyone will be walked towards the dinner session. On the second day of the high-level segment in the morning, there is a breakfast on the Plastic Science Sea, which is hosted by the UNIP ED. Invitations to that breakfast have been sent out by the Secretariat of the INC. Our session for the high-level segment will start at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we will have the panel sessions. There will be 3 consecutive panel sessions, one each of them focusing on one of the sub items or sub themes for the high-level segment, that is pollution, circularity, and means of implementation. Each of those panels will be composed by a moderator and 3 participants, 3 panelists. All of them will be selected from those that have registered to attend the high-level segment. So you will be hearing from us. Also, you have been asked to indicate your preference as to in which of those themes the ministers would like to intervene. The closing ceremony is expected to take place between 12:30 and 1 o'clock in the afternoon of May 1st. Following the closing of the high-level segment, there will be a ministerial working lunch on the Global Framework on Chemicals, which is hosted by the German government. Invitations to that lunch have been also sent out, and every minister or deputy minister that has registered should have received an invitation to that lunch. There will be a press conference taking place at 3:30 at the Palais des Nations. Everyone who would like to attend is more than welcome to join. We also plan to have a tour to the lakeside for an exhibition that is being held there. And that will be at between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. Sorry. Sorry. Went back in time. These are in the slide, you can see the different topics of the high-level segment, the themes that will be addressed both through the roundtables and in the panels. As an outcome of the high-level segment, we expect to have a report that summarizes all the discussions and a consolidation of the key messages that emerge from the high-level segment. Please note that all the ministers that are registered have been invited to provide in advance key messages that they may wish to highlight during the session. We have a few other events that are planned also in the ages of the high-level segment. One thing is we have an exhibition by the lake, which is open now. If you're here in Geneva, please go and visit. And we have quite a number of other events. Next. And we have also a fair on making visible the invisible, which is being hosted from the 30th of April to the 2nd of May, but with an opening session on the 29th of April. So we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Cristina. Moving along. Thank you, Rolf. We have we will have a range of side events, as we call them, which provide an opportunity for parties and representatives to organize 90-minute discussions and presentations at lunchtimes and during the evenings. Thank you. Oh, it's better. Thank you. This is an opportunity to share knowledge, build capacity, network, and exchange on experiences in the convention implementation. We have received this year a very high number of proposals for very interesting side events. A total of 56 have been selected on a large range of issues relating to the COPs, agendas, and theme. In relation to the format, the side events will be held in person, but it will be possible to have online participation. And if you wish to have access to the schedule of the side events, as well as further information on the side events, please look at the URL here posted on the slide. Another issue of importance for the COPs is all the elections. So the item is called election of officers, but as you will know, the elections also concern a range of membership in standing subsidiary bodies. So this slide captures all the elections that will be taking place per convention and provides also information on the positions that are available per region. I will not go into too many details. We have an information document that provides much more detailed information. What we wanted to highlight at this point is that, as decided by the 3 COPs at the last meetings, there is a process in place to facilitate the nomination of candidates and then ultimately decision-making by the COPs. So the nomination of candidates were invited by the 1st of February 2025, along with any supporting documents. This concerns, of course, the CRC and POPROC. And the selection of possible candidates was already considered during the regional preparatory meetings and will be facilitated until the COPs by regional election focal points. And here are the 5 individuals that have volunteered and been agreed by the region to take on this function. For the Africa region, Leonard Tampushi from Kenya. For Asia Pacific, Samira Mohamed Al-Dosari from Qatar. For Eastern Europe, Mario Vucic from Croatia. For GRULAC, Miriam Medel Garcia from Mexico, also the coordinator for the GRULAC region in Geneva. And for WIOG, we have 2 focal points, one for the EU, Katja Larsen from Denmark, and for the non-EU, Sverre Thomas Jare from Norway. When considering putting forward candidates, parties should take into account the following for each candidate: the required time and travel needs associated with the function, the qualifications that are needed, and the supporting documents that have to be submitted in support of some of the positions, the working language of the body, as some of them only work in English, for instance, the compliance committees, the balance in gender consideration, and also the presence of candidates at the COP is required for election as BC and SC Bureau members. So the physical legal presence of the individual running for election for the COP Bureau under Stockholm and Basel has to be present at the meeting. And other rules and requirements. According to the financial rules, no representative of any party whose contributions are in arrears for 2 or more years shall be eligible to become a member of the BC COP Bureau or its subsidiary bodies, a member of the RC or SC COP Bureau or a member of its subsidiary bodies, except that this does not apply to LDCs, SIDs, and parties that have signed and are respecting a schedule of payments. And this schedule is to be entered between the party and the Secretariat. Again, as I mentioned already, efforts are still needed to ensure that women and men from all parties are representatives in the bodies and processes of the 3 conventions. And now turning to an overview of the key items on the provisional agendas of the meetings. Starting with Basel Convention, COP17, the main issues are as follow. Under the item on strategic issues, consideration and adoption of a new strategic framework, a set of recommendations for improving the functioning of the PIC procedure. Turning to scientific and technical matters, first the technical guidelines. There will be some technical guidelines on POPs waste, updated and new to be considered for adoption by the COP. And the COP will consider progress with the development of another range of technical guidelines on waste lead-acid batteries, other batteries, waste pneumatic tires, e-waste, mercury waste, plastic waste, hazardous waste, physical chemical treatment, and biological treatment, and rubber wastes. For some of these, there are drafts before the COP. For others, it's for the COP to decide whether to initiate work towards the development of technical guidelines. Another scientific and technical matter will be consideration of classification and hazard characterization of wastes, the work on e-notifications, which should be progressed looking forward. Further consideration of plastic waste under the Basel Convention, looking at the next steps when it comes to the implementation of the plastic waste amendments and taking into account existing work under the convention and the negotiations of legally binding instruments to address plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. Another scientific and technical matter is the follow-up to the e-waste amendments. It is really about reflecting in existing guidance documents the adoption of the e-waste amendments. And finally, waste containing nanomaterials. A third item on the provisional agenda is about the Basel Convention Partnership Program. There are 4 partnerships established under the convention: Phase 2 Enforced Household Waste Partnership and Plastic Waste Partnership. The COP will have before it reports from the working groups of each partnership, consideration of possible outputs, products undertaken in the intersessional period, and then looking at the work plan of these partnerships for the next biennium. Finally, looking at the legal governance and enforcement matters under the item on further legal clarity, and as mentioned earlier when I presented the tentative schedule, the COP has before it revised amendment proposals on Annex 4, which focuses on the disposal operations, under the convention and are key to defining whether a substance or waste or object is a waste under the convention. Apologies. And also under this sub-item, some draft recommendations by the expert working group on revisions, possible revisions to annexes 1 and 3. So on the hazardous wastes and hazardous characteristics. Another item on the agenda, provisional agenda, is the revised proposal by the Russian Federation to amend paragraph 2 of Article 6 of the Convention, which is about the PIC procedure. And the proposal is to add a specificity and a deadline within which the state of import should respond to a proposed transboundary movement. The COP will also look at the issues on national legislation, notification, enforcement of the convention, and efforts to combat illegal traffic. Also, the work of the Implementation and Compliance Committee, progress achieved on specific submissions, but also in the general issues considered. These address a range of obligations under the Convention, from national reporting to illegal traffic to the development of national legislation, also cooperation between the ICC and the Rotterdam Compliance Committee. And the COP will also have before it draft guidance on how parties may integrate their implementation needs in the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks. This is a way to streamline the implementation of the convention in this broader development agenda. And finally, also a program of work will be before the COP for possible adoption. The COP will also have the work program of the OEWG before it for 26-27, which is supposed to bring together a lot of the work that will be entrusted by the COP to various intersessional groups and then be considered midway by the open-ended working group. Turning now to the Rotterdam Convention COP12 main issues. These include the listing of chemicals in Annex 3 to the Convention. There are 4 new chemicals proposed, recommended by the CRC for listing in Annex 3. These are chlorpyrifos, methyl bromide, mercury, and paraquat. In addition, the COP will have before it 6 returning chemicals that have previously been recommended by the CRC for inclusion in Annex 3, acetochlor, carbosulfan, quercetyl asbestos, pention formulations, aprodione, and paraquat formulation. The COP12 will also have before it the reports by the Compliance Committee. It will look at progress achieved on specific submissions, as well as the work under the General Review Mandate, and it will be invited to adopt a program of work for the next biennium. And finally, a main issue flagged for COP12 consideration will be the agenda item on enhancing the effectiveness of the Rotterdam Convention, which brings together a couple of sub-items, including the follow-up to decision 11.4 on enhancing the effectiveness of the Rotterdam Convention by addressing impacts regarding the listing of chemicals in Annex 3 and its implementation. And another sub-item, sub-issue under this item is a proposal by the some African countries to amend Article 6 of the Rotterdam Convention. Turning now to the Stockholm COP12, among the main issues will be consideration of listing of chemicals in Annexes A, B, or C. This includes chlorpyrifos, long-chain PVCase and related compounds, and chlorinated paraffins. Before the COP is also a proposal from Ethiopia to amend Annex A and proposing the inclusion of a new exemption, specific exemption for the use of UV 328 in the aircraft sector. This amendment proposal was circulated 6 months in advance to all parties. The COP will also look at specific exemptions, including a request from the Republic of Korea to extend specific exemptions. Another item is the reduction or elimination of releases from intentional production and use, DDT, PCBs, and the brominated diphenyl ethers. There will be a report before the COP on POPs in stockpiles, products and articles in use and in waste. For the first time under the compliance item, the COP will be invited to elect the new members of the committee, so the first 15 members of the committee, and look possibly at the adoption of a work program. Other items are the global monitoring plan with the revised guidance on the global monitoring plan before the COP, on reporting, possible further updates on the electronic reporting system and the financial mechanism. It will be the outcome of the 6th review of the financial mechanism. Turning to joint issues, these are the traditional ones. They include technical assistance, regional centers, resource mobilization strategy, possibly one on the non-state actor resource mobilization. The programs of work and budget for 26-27, which Gunda will present in greater detail. International cooperation and coordination with the Minamata Convention on Mercury, but also with a range of other organizations. There will be the item on enhancing cooperation and coordination among the BRS conventions, the so-called joint issues, which bring together work on preventing and combating illegal traffic and trade, the CHM and for information exchange, from science to action and mainstreaming gender. And finally, as a joint issue will be on the item of the venue and dates of the next meetings of the Conference of the Parties. And we're happy to share with you that the Secretariat has received an offer from the government of Panama to host the 2027 COPs. And now we'll turn now over to Gunda for a presentation of the program of work and budgets.
Thank you, Juliet. I will start the presentation by giving you a brief overview of the program of work and budget documents. The main document is listed first on your screen, and it is programs of work and budgets for the biennium 26-27 combined proposal. This document will give you an overview of the two budget scenarios that are being proposed by the Secretariat. The following documents under joint documents will give you additional details. There you will be able to see additional budget tables, staffing component, also proposed assessed contribution schedule, and so on. Additionally, we also have some convention-specific documents, and those provide information on financial matters for each of the conventions. Here you will see financial statements for the conventions as well as some other relevant information. Most of the documents are already published and available on our website, but there are a few that are currently being finalized, and those are indicated with blue text, but should be available shortly. Next, I would like to mention that as every budget cycle, COPs have also asked this time BRS Secretariat to prepare two budget scenarios for 26-27. First of those scenarios is Executive Secretary scenario. Normally, this scenario should not increase 5% over the previously approved budget, meaning approved budget of 24-25. This time, the Secretariat is presenting a 5.4% increase. Executive Secretary scenario is attempting to maintain activities basically at the same level as before, with very little programmatic changes. So those changes are introduction of new programmatic activities related to the Stockholm Convention Compliance Committee, and related to that particular activity is also introduced a staffing component, which would be 50% of a P3 position at the Geneva duty station. Other than that, the increases stem mainly just from the cost increases for such items as as daily subsistence rates for Rome and Geneva, also logistics for meetings, and our major cost driver is increases for staffing costs under our staffing cost envelope. Also, there are a few decreases in this scenario, and those result from activities that are not carried out each budget cycle, since some activities follow 4-year cycle. And also, we are introducing reduction of documents for the Persistent Organic Pollutants Review Committee. And also, while this year we do have high-level segment, the following COPs, there will be no high-level segment that will result in additional savings. So with all those efforts, we are still showing 5.4% increase over the previously approved budget. The next budget scenario that Secretariat has prepared is the zero nominal growth scenario. And here we are showing a 1.9% increase. Usually this should be at the same level as the previously approved budget for the 24-25. However, here we were not able to reach this goal in particular document that has been published on our website based on the significant cost increases. Even producing 1.9% increase document already show significant reduction in services provided to parties in numerous areas. So here we are reducing meeting related costs, decreasing editing and translation of documents in the 6 languages. We are reducing interpretation, and we are proposing online bureau meetings. We are also proposing, wherever possible, that funding of any technical work be done by voluntary funds. And we are also reducing translation of technical guidelines, as well as work of some expert groups and related reporting. And now on this slide, you can see the chart that represents the comparison of the 2 budget scenarios that I just introduced with the approved budget for 24-25. So as you can see, the approved budget for 24-25 is represented with the light blue bars. And next to the light blue bars, you can see the zero nominal growth scenario for 26-27, followed by Executive Secretary scenario for 26-27. And here we are showing also budget scenarios for both core as well as voluntary funds. Core funds are those that parties will be approving and will be funded by assessed contributions of parties and host country contributions. Voluntary funded activities will only be undertaken if the needed resources will be mobilized. So as a result, parties will not be approving voluntary budget, but will only be taking a note. So our focus within COPS and budget contact group will be on the left side of the chart that deals with the core budget. And finally, I would also like to note some other points that we have raised within our main budget document. Here we would like to thank our host countries, Italy and Switzerland, for their generous contributions. And we would also like to recognize FAO for their contributions. And we would like to express our thanks since we are expecting their continued support for staff and non-staff resources that will be included as part of the 26-27 budget. I also would like to mention that information regarding arrears for the 3 conventions have been provided within the 3 financial information documents that were listed on the screen on the first slide. Also, we would like to take this opportunity to thank all the donors who provided voluntary contributions for us to enable to carry out part of our activities for 24-25. And also we would like to encourage early donor pledges for 26-27 activities that we would like to carry out under voluntary budget. And proposed actions for COPS would be to approve the BRS program of work and budgets for 26-27, including the indicative assessment schedule for parties and also the staffing component. Thank you, Juliet. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Gunda. And just a last slide from my side before handing over to Rolf. So we have been doing in the run-up to the COPs quite a few of webinars to try to help and support the parties in preparing for the meetings. But we also had very recently the 4 regional prep meetings, and that took place for the Africa region, GRULAC region, Eastern European region, and Asia Pacific region. Here are just the dates, a couple of pretty pictures, and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the countries that graciously hosted the meetings. So in Zambia, in Trinidad and Tobago, and in China, and also the regional centers that made that were very that were excellent in supporting the parties in coming together and facilitating the work of the Secretariat. So with these words of thanks, a last slide with a big thank you to everyone, and I'll hand over to Rolf.
Thank you very much, Juliet, Christina, and Gunda for these very in-depth presentations. We've now reached the part of our briefing session this morning where we will have a question and answer session. I will first open the floor to colleagues here who are present in the room, and then we will consider questions from those who are present online. So the floor is open for colleagues in the room. When you take the floor, just say your name and country or organization so that, you know, because we have people online. Sir, you have to speak. You have the floor.
Thank you. My name is Jackie from the Indonesian Permanent Mission here. I have a question with regards to the high-level segment. I understand that non-minister and vice minister level is not possible in person, but is it possible to submit a written statement for the segment, or is it something not possible? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The high-level segment of the BRS is a bit different because we don't have high-level statements in plenary. However, as we know, some ministers would like to have a statement. If you submit those, then it will be published on our website and we made available. Sorry, quiet. Yes.
And then to all the Secretariat for this very, very important briefing. It's always a pleasure to receive this information and all the overview, but also the details of the different components of this triple COP, including this year, the high-level segment, the fair, side events, and all the different important aspects of what we expect in the coming weeks. Just to reaffirm the support of Ecuador to successful triple COP. And we also see very, very important linkages with other processes. We think we are very pleased to see that, including in the side events, for instance, we have linkages with plastics, which is also a very important process going on still to hoping to finalize it in August in this year, the negotiations under the INC, and we see that there are some side events, some of which we are also involved. But also we think there are linkages, but maybe just this, and this is an initial question, how do you foresee the contribution of the triple COP outcomes, notwithstanding its mandate and its own agenda, to the very near meetings that we will have afterwards in June in Punta del Este, Uruguay, one on the finalization of the design of the SPP or the establishment of the SPP, but also the first meeting of the working group of the framework of the global chemical framework. Also, with all the nuances as well to the other processes or important conferences this year, including the NIS UNOC conference, the UNEA in December as well. If you foresee either in the high-level segment or in other, how that linkages could be enhanced a little bit. And then final practical question is also about the high-level segment. We unfortunately regret that our vice minister, who was initially registered, will not be able to participate. But just to know if in the plenary could be our ambassador, permanent representative, who can participate. We understand that in the panels and the roundtables that won't be possible unless you have ministerial or vice ministerial level or equivalent. But if that will be the case, possible for the plenary of the HLS. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you very much. In terms of contributions, as you know, there will be different areas where the BRS will be contributing to those international processes. I think the first one is, of course, under the agenda item international cooperation, where we have already published the document, and we highlight the areas of cooperation we've had with those processes, but in particular inviting the COP to have further discussions on how we can enhance this cooperation. And of course, for SPP, I think there's a side event, and for the GFC, there's a high-level event as well during the high-level segment. I think Christina mentioned it, where we will have a specific GFC session hosted by the government of Germany and UNEP. With regards to plastic, has been mentioned as well, the COP will also be considering additional work that the BRS will be doing under this item. So there's a lot. And of course, most important is the linkages to other processes, such as happening on climate change, biodiversity. That definitely will be a theme for the HLS discussions, but also will be discussed under the item of international cooperation, and we'll be able to share with delegates the work that we are doing, but also invite comments and suggestions, and of course, support on the work that we are doing in those spaces. And we'll be participating also at the UNOC as well. The Oceans Conference will be participating in that conference in Nice. I think it's in June. With regards to HLS participation, Christina, ministers and deputy ministers and ambassadors.
Thank you for the question, and I'll take the opportunity to also address another similar question that we had online, and that is who can participate or not in the high-level segment. So there's two things. The plenary sessions, they're open for all participants to go into the room and sit there. That means the opening ceremony and also the panel sessions. The only difference is that for the panel sessions, we would only allow the ministers and deputy ministers to speak and take the floor. I also would like to highlight that it's not just those that are sitting in the panels, but interventions from other ministers that are not sitting in the panels will also be invited, and priority will be given to them. Now, if there is time, then we would look into giving the floor, for instance, to ambassadors. And I hope that and in terms of statements, as it was said before, we're not collecting statements as such, but we would invite everyone to contribute to the discussions. We would like to ensure that these discussions in the high-level segment are as open and interactive as possible and contribute to having a better outcome for our meetings, implementation of the conventions. I hope I was quite clear. And there was one question also about the possibility of changing your representative if someone else is not coming. That's what you mentioned too. And there's always a possibility. You just need to indicate to us, and we will do our utmost to accommodate. Now, if it implies funding, we will need to see whether it's possible or not. But but I mean the ones that were already nominated, to change.
It was difficult.
Yeah, but please, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Christina. For funding, as you know, we've all passed all the deadlines. To swap funding from one person to another and tickets and everything is a very complicated affair as far as the UN, because we have to ensure transparency and accountability, and it will take time. And right now we don't really have the resources and the time, in view of the time now we have before the COPs, to be doing changes to tickets and all sorts of things. And this was indicated in the letter that was sent to all parties about the restrictions. So if you made the nomination and you want to change it, it probably will be at your own cost. The Do we have any? No, thank you. We will now move to colleagues who have joined us online. First, I will just respond to some of the questions that have been sent to me. This briefing will be available. It will be for you to replay it and go back and forth and check the information that was presented. It will be the link will be available on the GEN website and probably also on our website. The presentation as well with all this detailed information and website links is also going to be available on the GEN website and also available on our website. So all that has happened this morning, you can have access to it, except that you won't be able to ask a question, obviously, because it's been something in the past history. In terms of participation in side event, this will be open to all registered participants who are registered and have a badge. They will be able to attend all the side events. I've been informed that we have at least 83% of the side events that will be online streamed. You will not be able to speak in those side events, nor probably raise questions, but they will be available for viewing in that sense. In terms of nomination for the different bodies, we like to invite you to verify that if you are in arrears, because the criteria was given for those countries who are putting forward nominations. If you are in arrears, please contact the Secretariat as urgent as possible so that we can give you the right documents, rather than wait during the COP when we're all running around trying to, disperse per diem, do registration and whatever. Let's do it early. Let us know if you're not sure whether your country is in arrears or is in arrears, and we will provide you with the information via email so that you can then start processes either to clear the arrears or to negotiate a repayment plan with the Secretariat. There was also a question on registration of ministers. Yes, registration of ministers is still open, so you can still register ministers, but the funding for ministers is closed because, as you know, we have limited funding, and funding has already been allocated by the due date for those ministers who made the request. Ministers can also register on the day itself, but they need to provide documentation, either from a note verbal from the mission or other documentation to prove that they are minister or of high level criteria. I think that's all I had from the floor. Yes? Okay, I don't know whether anyone wants to ask any further questions. Yes, I will give her. Don't worry. I don't see anything, any flags or no requests. Great, I'm happy that we've been very clear. In any case, if there's any question that comes up, don't hesitate to email us. We have an email on the website, and as you know, the Secretariat is always open to clarify any issue you may have, or even point to a document you think you cannot find it, because our website can be quite complicated sometimes, but I'm sure you will be able to find all the documents. I've been assured all the documents have been uploaded. There's only one document outstanding, and then a couple of documents from our partners, which these are reports from our partners that need to be submitted. So all the reports are available for your consideration and for your review, are online, and you just download them, and these are made available. So as we move on to our closing remarks, I would like to first invite Christine Fuller, who is the Executive Secretary ad interim of the Rotterdam Convention, to say a few words. And then I will invite Mrs. Oceane Dyer, a representative of the host country, Switzerland, to close this briefing session. Thank you. Over to you, Christine.
Thank you very much, Rolf, and thank you to all colleagues in Geneva. Greetings from Rome, from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. The FAO plays a key role in the implementation of the Rotterdam Convention, working closely with the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, through our joint secretariat under this convention. And FAO contributes both technical expertise and significant financial support, underscoring its strong commitment to the Convention's goals. The FAO operates a global network of offices to provide tailored support and expertise to its 194 member nations, addressing diverse agricultural and food security challenges, including the reduction of pesticide risks. And as you saw from Juliette's presentation, most of the chemicals on the Rotterdam agenda for this COP are pesticides. Since the convention entered into force 2004, FAO has provided in-kind and financial support covering some staff costs and funding requested technical assistance to the parties of the convention. You can find all the details about this in the program of work and budget documents as presented by Gunda. So through all this support, including also site events at the COP, and of course full involvement in the COP, FAO enhances global efforts to protect human health and the environment from harmful chemicals and pesticides, and together with our colleagues in the Secretariat in Geneva, we will do everything to make this COP a real success. Thank you for the opportunity. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Christine. Over to you, Oceane, for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolf. And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, let me begin by sincerely thanking the Geneva Environment Network and the BRS Secretariat for organizing this important pre-COP briefing. Your continued efforts are essential to ensure that we are all well prepared for the very busy and critical weeks ahead. The briefing that you've attended today conclude actually a series of events on the road to the BRS COP, and the Geneva Environment Network partnered with several UN agencies, civil society organizations, and trade unions to propose 5 other sessions on top of this one that allow member states and stakeholders to dive into different perspectives on some of the topics that we will address at the next COPs. We are thankful to colleagues and all those of you who have prepared for this series of events and made them possible. Being information events or those kind of briefing are really helpful to bring knowledge and to help us all delegates prepare for the work that we will have at the upcoming COP. The 2025 BRS COPs are a pivotal opportunity, not only to make specific progress, but also to reaffirm the role of the conventions as central pillars of global chemicals and waste governance. It is a moment to update, to strengthen them, and to ensure they remain responsive to today's challenges and tomorrow's expectations. In this regard, the proposed substances for listing under the Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions are key. Listing is the primary tool through which the convention remains relevant, responsive, and impactful. It ensures that our collective action continues to be guided by science and driven by the imperative to protect human health and the environment. We are also very grateful to the expert working group of the Basel Convention, who worked tirelessly to propose 30 recommendations to the COP to improve the functioning of the peak procedure. These recommendations that do not necessitate to amend the convention are an opportunity to improve the implementation of the Basel Convention and strengthening of its procedures. It is our responsibility to strengthen the convention and preserve their integrity for the future. I invite us all to keep this in mind when we discuss the various proposals on the table for the 3 conventions during the COPs. In a world facing a triple planetary crisis, the BRS Convention keep demonstrating that multilateralism works. And this year, we have the chance to show it again through decisions that are ambitious, grounded in science, and guided by collaboration. Geneva, here in Switzerland, as host to the BRS Secretariat and a unique ecosystem of institutions working on chemicals and waste, remains a leading hub for such progress. Thanks to the geographical proximity of these institutions, dialogue and the fostering of synergies are at the heart of our work here in Geneva. We look forward very much to welcoming ministers and high-level delegates here very soon and give the necessary visibility to our important work under the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions. 2025 is shaping up to be a milestone year for the International Chemicals and Waste Cluster. Beyond the BRS COPs, we expect to see progress on two major new instruments, the Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution Prevention, as well as the legally binding Treaty on Plastic Pollution. Let us use the moment of these coming weeks to prepare the ground for impactful outcomes and to reaffirm once again our collective commitment to a cleaner, healthier, and safer future for all of us. Thank you very much to all of you, dear delegates, dear colleagues, for your presence here in Geneva, or also the many colleagues that are following this briefing online. It was really great to have you all here. We look forward to seeing you very soon at the COP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ocean. Now it only remains for me to welcome you in a couple of weeks to Geneva. Everything is going according to plan. We have everything organized to welcome all the delegates and also all our high-level participants, ministers, deputy ministers, for us to have, as mentioned before, engaging but also provocative, as well as impactful discussions so that we can continue to move the agenda on pollution. As you know, we need to address pollution. We need to address the impacts that it is having on human health and the environment. So those few words, I would say not goodbye, but see you soon in the CICG in Geneva. Thank you very much.